So thanks for joining me. It's a very late Tech Tip Tuesday. I'm going to show you some of the things that we've been taking phone calls on. A whole bunch over the last couple months that aren't Bernina or Brother related. I've got one of our little trade-ins here that is off-brand, and it's a nice little machine, but if you don't know what you're doing with it, it's not going to be your friend. So we're just going to go through kind of general threading rules on a regular sewing machine so that you guys know what you're looking for all the time, no matter what kind of machine you buy. Okay, welcome to my bench. So we've been taking lots and lots of calls from people who have either old mechanical Singers or mechanical Kenmores, and they're lots of people are finding secondhand machines in the wilds of Kijiji, or you know, being handed down a machine from a loved one, or a garage sale. So we're finding all sorts of machines that people who just don't have a lot of education are running into trouble with. And the biggest complaint that they have is looping on the back of their project. And that is a really quite simple thing to fix. It's a threading problem. So we're going to go through threading on this machine and kind of the key points that you'll need to, if you can identify all these things on your machine, you will be able to keep yourself out of trouble. So if you're looking for used machines, Kijiji is probably not your friend. I'd say come see us. We have some used machines that will be much friendlier. So every sewing machine out there is going to have these basic parts, and make sure you can identify them on your machine. So where you're going to start is your spool pins. Most of these older mechanical machines just have vertical spool pins, which your thread cones that are crisscross are going to wobble a little bit on there. It's not the end of the world, but it will work. So from your thread stand, usually there's a thread guide either right at the back on your machine here, or a thread guide right before you go down the front of the machine. Those are things you need to be able to find. It's critical that you hit all those thread guides, otherwise the thread's not going to stay where it needs to stay. And the other thing you need to be aware of is where your presser foot is. So the moment you start threading your machine, make sure your presser foot is up. That'll be, the lifter on this one's on this side. So lift that presser foot up before you even start thinking about putting thread through your machine. You'll be much happier. So when you get started, lots of the newer machines are really nicely labeled, so it's easy to keep track of where you are. So first thread guide is on this machine is over here, and then you're coming down. The knob here, that's your tension unit. Depending on the machine, your tension unit might be down here. This older Singer that I have over here, this is the tension unit here with the check spring in it. So sometimes check springs are separate from tension units, sometimes they're together. So be aware of where your tension unit is. And on your newer computerized machines, you're not necessarily going to be able to see your tension unit, but you should know that it's usually right in this neck of the woods. So when you go down, you'll need to go back up at some point, and usually up underneath. Ooh, this one is good. In here, there's a little check spring in there, so that little springy wire is the check spring. So this is your check spring. It's just a little spring that moves up and down. It helps finish your stitch for you and pulls the thread the rest of the way out of your fabric. So it's important that you hit your check spring and then your take-up lever. So the take-up lever is the little arm that on this one comes kind of right up outside, and the thread's going to come in from the back to the front. So in this way. So there's always, pretty much always a down, up, down, up, down to get your machine threaded properly. And then in front, you'll want to make sure you get your thread in a thread guide above the needle. Some of them are a bar across here. Some are a little loopy thing here. They're all a little bit different. But that's important to get that in the right place, otherwise your machine's going to be so cranky. So get that threaded front to back. The other thing to be aware of is lots of these older machines do take standard domestic machine needles with the flat on the back. I don't know if you can see that very well. So flat on one side. The flat will go to the back on this machine. There's a couple machines out there where the flat will go to the left or the right, but not this one. Then the next thing you're going to need to worry about is threading your bobbin. So this one is a CB hook system with no bobbin case in there. Why is there no bobbin case in there? Well, that's not helpful. So when you guys are putting bobbins into this particular hook system, so this is the one where the little flappy latches open, and then the hook race cover comes out. Might come out easier said than done. And then this is a CB hook, so it's like half a circle. These ones, the bobbins that fit on those, all need to go the same direction. When you're putting these bobbins in the bobbin case, when it's going into the machine, that little arm is going to be going upward on your bobbin case. And your bobbin, if you drop it in, what's going to happen with your thread for it to be happiest is it needs to go down and kind of back up through the tension. That's going to keep it spinning nicely in there. So when you drop the bobbin in and get it up under the tensioner and pull the thread holding the bobbin case, your bobbin should turn clockwise. That's how this bobbin case works. It's not the same for every style of hook and not the same for every style of bobbin case, but for these CB hook machines, your bobbin in the bobbin case should turn clockwise. And it's up under the tension spring here. And then you can clip that into place. Let's turn this on and do some sewing. So we're just going to look at what we're set at right now. So on this machine, upper tension, most machines are happier around 4, but I'm just going to leave that there for now and see why it's there. This machine is set at a straight stitch and a length of kind of 2.5 or 3. So 2.5 is a pretty happy length for a stitch length for regular sewing. So I'm going to let you guys watch that little check spring. If that's not... Watch that check spring and the take-up lever. I'll sew really slow. So as you're going up and down, the tension on that upper thread at the end pulls that check spring up, and the take-up lever is helping pull the thread up out of the stitch. So far it's... So I'm going to increase that upper tension back to 4 because that's normally where I like default to be. So upper tension at 4. And I am pretty happy with this stitch. I'm just sewing through 2 layers of quilting cotton right now. So on the front of the stitch you see the bright orange thread and little tiny dots of black where the stitch is forming. And on the back, you can just barely see them, but there's little tiny dots of orange along the back as well. And then I think if we go into a zigzag, we'll have a pretty balanced zigzag. So zigzag on this machine, just kind of the one width here. Oh, variety of widths, up to a wide zigzag, so about there. And then adjusting the stitch length and the width here. Even on this really super basic machine, you can get down into like a nice kind of satin stitch type finish. So tension at 4, short little stitch length. And right now I would say this is pulling a little too tight to the top, and that could be that this spool of thread is not super happy up here because it's not consistently pulling weird tension. It's inconsistently pulling weird tension. So if you are on one of these older machines and all the thread you're buying is coming on cones like this that aren't turning super smoothly on your spool pins, an external spool stand might be your best friend. Or a machine with a horizontal spool pin. But this would be a place to get started if your thread's not making you happy. So then that'll look thread coming up off the end of that cross wound thread and up into that first guide and then over into your guide over here. And then if I wanted something like a satin stitch on this machine or a buttonhole stitch, we can shorten the stitch length. We can set the zigzag at whatever length we want, and then you can lower your upper tension and that stitch will pull tighter to the back. If I lower that down to 2. And if that happens where your thread comes out of your needle, you cut it too short when you trimmed your thread on the way out. And I think I'd like that narrower if I was doing a decorative stitch. Okay, the other big thing to know, these mechanical machines don't know where up is all the time. So if you stop with the stitch finish, which is take up lever all the way up, you'll be much happier. And then when you pull that out, it will be better. Yep. So now we can get down into that skinnier decorative satin stitch type look. And because I just grabbed this bobbin case off the wall of new parts, it could be its tension isn't quite right either. It's probably okay. So those are things to be aware of on these older machines. Your tension units on other old mechanical machines might look a little bit different. I'll show you how to get your thread through them without pain and suffering. So some of these other machines, your thread tension unit might look like this. So these particular tension units have the check spring built in. So this would be an even older style than this Kenmore that I've been sewing with. And this one is not together. This is in a very disrepaired state, so I don't think I can sew on it. So these ones, there's going to be a bit of a sandwich thing going on here. We need to get the thread through the layers. And this one we probably have to go up and under the check spring. So when you're looking at that, the thread's going through the tensioner. And it's kind of tight right now, but the machine's not really all put together, so this might not work. But as that stitch forms, that check spring is going to be bouncing up and down. And this guide here is going to keep your thread where it needs to be. So that'll be threaded more like that to make it happy. And then other thread guides you might need to watch for. This one has a thread guide here that you get the thread in through there. And some of these ones with the loop guide here, you'll need to kind of follow that loop around or fish the thread through straight, and then you'll be much happier. And then these ones with the drop-in bobbins, they are going to go in the opposite way of what I just showed you on the vertical bobbin there. Thing to watch for on drop-in bobbins, lots of the singers take the ones with the curved sides on them. Let's try and get that in focus. So that's curved, and that's curved. So these particular bobbins don't fit in all machines. They're definitely singer specific. You'll want to make sure that you get the right bobbins for the right machine. So these ones, the curved ones, goes in there. When you pull on this bobbin and get it through the tensioner, it's going in a counterclockwise direction when you pull on the thread. And this one has no hand wheel. So this is all I can show you. Yeah, so that's things to watch for on your machines. Some of these older machines, you can tell it where you want your needle position, left, right, center. Reverse on these is often built into your stitch length system. And this is listed in stitches per inch instead of stitch length. So stitches per inch will be a number like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe 14, whereas stitch length will be numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then that'll be your reverse on this type of machine. I knew what I wanted to show you guys on Tech Tip Tuesday yesterday, and unfortunately today was not super smooth in here. So thanks for joining me, even though I popped on really super late. If you're not sure how to thread an older machine that you've got at home, there's some machines you'll find information online and lots you won't. And we will do our best. If you have more things you would like to learn about, I am definitely up for doing more things on Tech Tip Tuesday. So thanks guys. Be safe, be calm, be kind. Deep breath. If you need to rethread your machine, rethread your machine. As you can see, even techs who thread machines all day long have days where they're like, I can't thread this. Deep breath. We all have those moments. Sometimes you just need to step back and breathe, or drink coffee or wine, or go for a walk, or go puddle jumping. I'm guessing all of us could do better if we went and did some puddle jumping today. And there's no shortage of puddles in Calgary. Take care, guys, and we'll talk later. Bye.